Hey everyone, welcome to Hammerhead Hobbies. In this episode, I'm going to be unboxing and reviewing this F-16A Plus Fighting Falcon by Hasegawa. Alright, welcome back. This is an F-16A Plus Fighting Falcon by Hasegawa. It is in 1:72 scale, and the model number is 00231, and this was built in the year 2000. Starting off with the instructions, I can open it up and we begin with the paint and decal guide. So as you can see, we have a very detailed paint and decal guide. These are Humbrol color codes over there, and to give you exact positioning of the decals, they even give you the armament painting and decal guide. On this side of the instructions, we have the sprue numbering, which I like. That way I can see what number the sprue is, the piece is on the sprue, rather than looking through my sprues to find the piece. Looking at the inside, they do give you an armament placement, which is very nice. And over here, they have very detailed instructions on colors and placement. So very nice instructions. Not a lot of steps though, but good enough for this airplane. So it does have a good armament on it. It comes with everything, and you can see down here all the colors. Moving on to the decals. As you can see, they have very good color on these. There's even some small detailed ones, and I can read them. They're very legible. Okay, and there's some more legible small ones here that say no step. And they even give you an instrument panel decal, which is not the greatest decal because it's just plain black and white. And usually these are a little more colorful. Moving on to the sprue. We have the upper fuselage, and you can see there is good recessed detail in the fuselage. This pattern here is indicative of the F-16. The recessed lines are very shallow and very thin, so you really got to be careful you don't sand those off or damage them in any way, because you will lose them. Moving to the bottom of the fuselage, and again, same thing. They got very faint lines, very thin, very shallow recessed lines. All right. As you can see, the wheels, they have some fairly good detail on the hub. There's a bit of flash on the wheels. There is no tread pattern. The exhaust pipe has some good detail on the outside. There is no detail on the inside at all. It's just smooth plastic. But it does have some good depth to it. That's almost an inch of depth, so not bad. Looking at the pilot, there's some good detail on the pilot. You can see that his helmet, his goggles, it's not very sharp, but it is there. Looking at the seat, okay, very basic detail on the seat. You can see the cushion, you can see the headrest. Sprue over. I'm looking at the cockpit area here. So there's some good shape in the cockpit area. You can see they got some rudder pedals. You can see the instrument panels, some raised portions to it. Again, this is the intake. And again, it does have some pretty good depth, about 1/2 inch to 5/8 of an inch in depth there. So it adds to the realism. And there's some small pieces here, very nice and thin. Just got to be careful cutting those off the sprues or you will break them. Looking at the wing, very little detail on the wing, but there is some nice lines. Again, very, very thin, very, very faint and shallow. So you got to be really, really careful. Even the flaps have very thin lines, very shallow. Be very careful again with the elevators or horizontal stabilizers. and with the vertical stabilizer and rudder. Again, very shallow lines and very thin. Looking at the landing gear, the thing I like about the landing gear is they're very thin, so more realistic. They got some detail on, not a lot. Looking at the front wheel, it is one piece, which makes it stronger, but it's a lot harder to paint, and there is a bit of flash on the pieces here, so you'll have to scrape that off or sand it down. And then this is the inside of one of the wheel well flaps, and you can see there's a little bit of detail in that. Looking at the sprue with all the armament, going from the bombs, again very smooth, but the fins are fairly thin, which I like. You know, sometimes you get some bulky fins, but these ones are fairly thin and tapered. The supports, the armament supports, they have a little bit of detail, not much at all. Just a couple of very faint, shallow lines, but some good shape to it. Looking at the drop tanks, again, they have some sort of detail on it. I don't know if it's visible. Again, they're very faint, very shallow, thin lines. And then looking at the AIM-9s, the missiles, again, fairly thin fins on them, so not too bad. Again, a little bit of flash that you'll have to file off. And then again, the supports, a little bit of detail, but not much. And again, with all this detail, very shallow and very thin lines. Lastly, moving on to the canopy. Okay, you can see that it's very clear. It is fairly thin. Okay, there is just a slight waviness to it, but I don't think that'll affect it. So if you put detail inside the canopy, and if you look at here, you can see fairly clear. A little bit of distortion. Again, there is a little bit of waviness to it, but for the most part, you'll be able to see the majority of the detail that you put on the interior. So if you do have a closed canopy, you'll be able to see the pieces inside. Okay, so again, this is the F-16A Fighting Falcon by Hasegawa. It is a year 2000 model. So if you stick around, I'll go through the pros and cons and a quick summary about what I think about this model. All right, welcome to the pros and cons. Pros. Instructions are clear and detailed. Decals are excellent and detailed. Sprues have recessed panel lines. Full armament is included. And the canopy is clear. Cons. The recessed panel lines are thin and faint. They need more detail in the cockpit area. There is some flash on the small pieces. And the canopy has a slight waviness to it. Overall, there's enough pieces to make it a challenging build. It's a good model, but it falls short of great. This model is good for intermediate to advanced builders. I hope you enjoyed the review, and I hope you enjoyed the build.